hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma 231 here, back in today to talk about World Trigger, chapter number 244. This chapter is titled The Away Mission Test Part 40. I don't have any funny whip this week to say about the Away Mission Test chapter title. I mean, it's the same exact thing. I think I've done, 13 or 14 World Trigger reviews by this point, and every single time, besides for the one time, there was the one time, I will give you that much, they've all been the same exact thing. The Away Mission Test Part, blah, blah, blah. I don't have a funny quip this time to say about it, so we're just going to skip that part really quickly. And, of course, this is our chapter for August of 2024. This chapter actually came out at the beginning of the month on August 4th. And we've got a pretty decently sized chapter this week. We have a 27-page chapter, which isn't bad by any means. I'm actually going to quickly check what last chapter was. Last month, and of course, July, we had a 29-page chapter. So this chapter has 1 or 2 less pages to it. But overall, I think this is a very, very solid chapter of World Trigger, as we'll get into it. This chapter really follows the last chapter in the sense of, okay, the first day of the Tryon Soldier battle simulation stuff is all done and over. So now the whole ploy is, alright, we're still going through all of the rest of the squad, seeing what all of them think about the battle simulations and how they're going to put more of a foot forward in the second day of these battle simulations. And that is sort of the whole deal that we had last time, because last time, just quickly going through it, we stopped by Kitazoe Squad, got some stuff with Taiki. We went to the monitor room a bunch of times. We saw a lot of interesting Kumagai development in Mizukami Squad 10. We had a nice little moment with Yuma and Replica, and of course the rest of Tombakoma 2 in all of those respective squads. And we pretty much just shifted around a few dozen times, not a few dozen, but a few times to all of these different squads. And we ended off last chapter with Suwa pretty much going like, hey guys, while we're eating, let's decide about tomorrow. And the entire squad is just like, okay, sounds good. And that is literally where we start this chapter, with Suwa at the beginning of the table, just starting to talk. As we open up this chapter, of course, chapter number 244, titled The Away Mission Test Part 40. We literally open it up with Suwa just going like, hey, tomorrow, let's take a relaxed approach with special battle sims, right? And he's like, let's not waste too much time creating Tryon soldiers tomorrow, right? And the first person to obviously object to this is Katori, going like, what are you talking about? Taking it easy? We're on a winning streak here. Like, we need to keep this going. But Suwa, being the guy he is like, hey, Katori, it is because we are on a winning streak. He's like, yeah, I mean, these past few days, we've ranked up some insane wins here in the Battle Sims. And what does this exact situation remind you of? And Osamu blurts into saying like, hey, this is how it was at the start of the original Battle Sims when Mizukami and Ninomiya squads were winning big. And Katori's like, oh, that's right. And Suwa's like, yeah, Osamu, you got it right on the money. And he's like, bingo. He's like, and how did that work out for them? And I like how we're switching to everybody, giving everybody a little bit of a moment, as Oki then speaks up to say, like, hey, those other two squads got countered very hard and fast by the other squads, which really put a damper on all of their streaks, right? And I love Katori's little note here of like, hey, and Suwa, just to remind you, you're the one who brought it all crashing down for him, right? But Suwa doesn't really pay any mind to him, just like says like, hey, because counteracting the standout hotshots is the obvious move. And he's like, plus, we've already risen to second place in the overall rankings. As we get in our little look at the whole idea of the rankings as of 7 p.m. on the 5th day here, just seeing like, hey, first place is still Mizukami Squad. They're still so high up there. Those initial wins in the beginning honestly may cost them winning the entire thing. I feel like we'll get another moment where, of course, Suwa pulls through and Suwa gets the top spot. Just 'cause I think that is how it is generally going to happen. I think that'd be a nice sort of storytelling moment to have, is showing the squad that Osamu's in to sort of reach that upper height there. But of course, Suwa Squad is in second place with all of these battle wins here on these other few days, really, really helping them out, right? But Katori then eventually says, it's like, hey, hold on though. And she's like, in that case, shouldn't we have like held our cards close to our chest today, so tomorrow we could have actually come up on the forefront and actually started battling all of these guys? Like, if we unleashed all of our big guns tomorrow, then aren't the points that we could be winning even higher? As of course we remember that like the special simulation exercise, day 1 a win was worth 100 points and a draw was worth 20, and on day 2 150 points and 30 points respectively for winning and drawing. So an increase of like 50% on both of those margins for day 2, right? And so it was like, well, here's the thing, that's not the strategy that we want to do. Unlike in the normal battle sims where the avatars were set in stone, these special sims offer a lot more freedom in terms of playable units. Because yeah, of course, in the original battle sims, if you wanted to, you always had your specific units, right? So of course, Ninomiya unit was always a low Tryon unit, which had the Ray Gust attack and a few other basic things, and can do a spider and all of that, right? But of course, a Tachikawa unit from the A rankers that you could sort of loan out, those are always the same. Every Tachikawa unit was the same. So if you saw an opponent had a Tachikawa unit, you knew how to deal with that. And if you had a Kuroe unit or something, you knew how to deal with that. Very simple because it's all the same. And that's pretty much what Suwa is saying here, is that in the special battle simulations here, where people get to actively create and design their Tryon units. I understand that those two words, create and design, pretty much mean the same things, but whatever. Where they get to influence the design. So it was pretty much saying like, hey, whenever they can affect the design like that, that means more work for us in trying to figure out what they can do. Because we don't really get an idea of that in this chapter, but of course, tomorrow during the day 2 of the special battle sims, Hyuse's Canadian bomber unit could be a totally different beast than it is today. He could figure out a mode or something and change it up to where it may be even more deadly, or maybe it's just a big hoax or like a big fox sort of thing. Like, oh, what was her name? It starts with K, I'm pretty sure. The operator on Ninomiya Squad. Kagami. Yeah, Ren Kagami, who made the big clay statues. Like, tomorrow, those clay statues may be a unit made by Chika, and they may be super duper powerful, and not just really small units with high defense scores that Kagami made. So it's a very interesting concept of like, these are evolving units as time goes on, so you can, instead of making counter strategies with the units you already have access to, you are making counter strategies out of brand new ideas. God, this is why I love World Trigger right here. Like, there is no universe in which I don't sit here and go, damn, I just thought about that. That's pretty cool. And most manga don't make you do that, so World Trigger, number 1. After Suwa says this, though, Osama goes just like, hey, there's a decent chance that today some other squad would have done something similar to what we did. If we didn't do it first, somebody else may have pretty much taken their spot and gotten a lot of points capitalizing off this special battle simulation, right? And Oki pretty much just backs the two of them up, just saying like, yeah, right, just like hanging on to some secret strategy could actually backfire, because what if somebody used that strategy today, then we couldn't use it tomorrow. And he pretty much makes the whole point of like, hey, the early bird gets the worm when it comes to slick ideas, which, slick ideas, really? I never thought Oki to be a guy who said, yeah, man, I've got some pretty slick and cool ideas in the back of my brain here, but I can actually sort of see it now the more I keep saying it. But oh man, why do out of all the World Trigger characters, I have to share a birthday with Oki? I'm honestly here for it though, since he's part of the main squad here, so I'm not complaining. And we see that Katori thinks more about this. We get a little panel for her just going, So it is what it is. But then Yui finally speaks up. First time we've heard her speak this chapter, as she pretty much just says like, hey, since there are more points on the table tomorrow, just like in the standard sims, maybe you'll also be allowed to use more soldiers like before. And Sue's like, yeah, that's a very good possibility. And he's like, and that would mean even more broader range of tactics and a chance that we'll see totally different strategies than today. And he pretty much says like, hey, basically tomorrow is all about predicting each other's strategies based on the cards that were played today, and pitting those competing predictions against one another. We pretty much get the same little image we saw last time whenever, I'm pretty sure it was, I actually have the art chapter up in another tab. Let me just open it real fast. It was during it was from Mizukami Squad. It was Kakuzi Kurachi and Ko playing cards pretty much, and just like, hey, I counter you, I counter you, I counter you. And pretty much we get that same image here with Suwa and Oh, what's his name? Why can I forget it? Kuruma. I don't know why I forgot Kuruma's name. He's actually like a squad captain, so I don't know why I forgot. Well, I guess he's not a squad captain because his squad isn't called Kuruma Squad. He's just like the captain of Suzunari 1. Sort of like, it's not Osamu Squad, it's Tamakoma 2. But whatever, it doesn't really matter. We see Kuruma and Suwa pretty much playing that card game and pretty much putting their cards on the table and then using the cards they have in their hand to predict better strategies based on it, right? So sort of that same idea of what Kumagai Squad, Murakami Squad was wanting to do of predict tomorrow's predictions and predict predictions to beat those further on. So sort of that same idea, but Suwa isn't really going as far with that as Murakami Squad was, right? And Katori at this point just says like, hey, all right, so this is just pretty much just like a game of luck with emphasis on reading other people, right? And Yu's like, and we actually painted a massive red bullseye on our backs, like we were getting ready to be shot down tomorrow. And Yu's like, exactly. And he's like, and taking all of those factors into account, even if we did pour more time into these battle simulations, like, I'm not convinced that we could actually boost our win ratio because everybody's going to have tactics to take down the number one team, which is us. And he pretty much just says like, hey, the squads that can do more than just predict are Ninomiya and Wakamura squads by my count. And Oki's like, why Ninomiya and Wakamura squads? And Katori instantly realizes what Suwa means and just says like, hey, he's talking about that because they have Chika and Hyuse. And Oki's like, that makes sense. Like, you're talking in those sheer Tryon reserves. And Osamu then just brings up point like, hey, only those two can create soldiers with remarkably high stats and therefore put together tactics that other squads simply can't mimic. And Suwa's like, yep, you guys got all of this perfect. And pretty much he just says like, hey, and that's why I'm saying not to sweat this and just to spend time on a delegated science instead. But as he pretty much tells like everybody, do your homework, he then turns over to Osamu and is like, hey, Bakumo. And Osamu's like, yeah. And Suwa pretty much says like, hey, you are on simulation duty today. I want you to throw together some low effort tactics, right? And he's just like, it's just got to be stuff that's bound to work against a few of these squads. Don't bother concocting up counter strategies for every single squad here, right? And Osamu's like, understood. And Katori gives Suwa this look just saying like, you would want him to do every single one on a different day? Like, no, that just make his head explode, which I find is a really funny little joke there, because of course, we all know, like, this, of course, is Osamu's job, is coming with stupid low-effort tactics, like, tactics that are good, but can work with low try-on, so I just love seeing Suwa being able to delegate this information to everybody, and just seeing how he gives it to Osamu here, I just really genuinely like it. Where was I? I left my place chapter. All right, Suwa here then just says like, hey, the rest of you guys just start chipping away at this delegated assignment starting tonight, so we aren't dragged down by tomorrow by a giant pile of homework, right? And I love, because normally whenever we get these images where the captain tells them, the rest of the squad's just like, okay, sounds good, and they say it in like 5 different ways. But here, this squad does it so much differently, and I love that. So Oki's like, all right, roger that, like, I will put together some slick ideas. And as he says that, Katori then just like, God damn it, you're making us work overtime. I didn't sign up for this, right? And Yui's just like, hey, we can share pictures of all the problems later to get them done on a more better basis, right? So I love this sort of dichotomy between all of these characters, like Oki being like, hey, sounds good. Katori being like, God damn it. And then Ui being like, yeah, we'll do this. We'll reinforce what you're saying us. I just really genuinely like that. But that is Suwa Squad for this chapter, as we now move over to Ninomiya's Squad 8, where we open up with just the information saying like, hey, current ranking, they are in 7th place, which is going down, daily rank of 8th place, and special simulation of 6th place. So daily rank wasn't the best, below half, but as far as the special simulation rank, they ranked right in the middle. And that's sort of how it is. But we start off on this chapter with Emma talking, as Emma's just like, hey, I think that we did all right in all of these matches today. It's like, ironically, it was thanks to Kagami's outlandish soldier designs, right? And he's like, and also Amatori's unit really left an impression on all of our rivals today. And the entire team's just like, yep, sounds good. Same thing I was sort of talking about a minute ago. Everybody just says, sounds good in a different way. But Emma didn't just continue saying like, hey, so tomorrow I bet the other squads will keep Amatori's unit at a distance by bringing a lot more long-range units to the table. Pretty much saying like just how Suwa Squad ended up doing their tactics today. And Chika's like, hey, but you don't forget about Wakamura Squad. They also had a really powerful unit too. And it was unbeatable without ranged soldiers to take it down. And it was like, yeah, that's completely right. Ozma then speaks up and just says like, hey, so if our squad or Wakamura Squad brings a number of high-powered flying units to the battle tomorrow, then it would basically be a checkmate for any squads lacking ranged firepower. And it was like, exactly, considering that risk, can we really expect a lot of people to bring strong ranged units against us too, and Wakamura? Did I read that right? We can expect them to bring their strong range... Okay, we can expect them to bring their strong ranged game against us, against Wakamura too. Okay, it's a little bit of an interesting way to say that, but yeah, what they're pretty much getting at is tomorrow will be a day all about ranged squads. Because we saw how OP that meta was today with flying units, and if you can't deal with them, you can't deal with them. And here Ozma's like, hey, everybody's going to want to be able to deal with them tomorrow. Pretty much also giving the idea that maybe a good play for tomorrow will be using ground-based units. So, very interesting idea, because everybody's going to be also looking for ranged at the same time. Kagami then just says like, hey, I guess that forcing the enemy to adopt a particular counter strategy is one of Amatori's strengths, right? And it was like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I guess trying to butter up Chika sitting like across from him. But Chika then just says like, hey, so for tomorrow's battles, should we create units designed to beat ranged opponents? And Emma's like, yeah, I actually think that'll be key for us, right? But Ninomiya, of course being Ninomiya, then turns to Emma and finally says, do you really think that's good enough? And he's like, isn't there a chance to ignore the obvious risk and outplay us in some other manner? And Emma's like, a chance? I mean, of course, there's always a chance. But there are no absolutes when facing other people. But it's like, given my time in the rank wars, I've actually come to realize something. And what he says is that B rank is just full of diligent agents. And Chika's like, diligent? Like, what do you mean by that? And Ozma's like, oh, very interesting viewpoint you have there, right? And also Kagami's like, well, diligent in what way? And Emma's like, I mean sort of just what it sounds like. When these squads and these agents lose, they always reflect on that loss. And whenever they get beaten, they make a counter strategy against that tactic next time. And it's like, for the most part, these guys play it by the book. In other words, when they realize there's a particular way they might lose, they automatically compensate for it. And a lot of them behave that way. And I think sort of what he's getting at here is that all of these agents today will take into note of, all right, flying units were very strong, so we're going to go with ranged units. And sort of going to that idea that Ninomiya is like, do you think that will really be enough? And I really like how, of course, Ninomiya is that type of teacher and that type of person who is going to say a lot of harsh words to get to the point of all of the good words that he's eventually going to say. And pretty much putting Emma into his corner and making him think about it is really interesting for the fact of, I'm sorry, I need to catch my breath there, but putting Emma on the spot and letting him give more evidence and more reasoning for it is just a really good idea, narrative-wise. Emma just continues saying like, hey, especially in these shuffled impromptu squads, it's like, hey, Ninomiya, the types you're describing who might ignore obvious risks strike me as more of the A-rank agents. That is, people who take bold risks and always bend the rules. During today's matches, the only ones who could have put that sort of fear in me were Utagawa and Suwa Squads. And I love that at this moment, Chika just sort of thinks like, oh, Osamu and Yuma are in those squads. They're my teammates. I love this little image that she has here, right? But Ozma then just says, like, hey, both being opponents that we beat today, by the way. And Kagami's like, yeah, Amatori's unit was perfect for hitting them, especially where it hurt. But Emma just continues saying, like, hey, yeah, we did beat them today, but if we're going to be wary of anyone tomorrow, it'll actually need to be those two. And maybe Wakamura Squad, since they resemble us in a lot of ways, right? And I love Ozma sort of has a little thought bubble here, and he's just thinking this to himself. He doesn't say it, but he pretty much says, like, hey, his logic is lacking in a lot of places, but he's got a solid viewpoint and very sharp intuition. And after hearing all of this, Ninomiya just shakes his head and he's like, all right, fine. Emma, take all of that into account and think up some tactics for tomorrow. And Emma's like, huh? Why me, though? And he's like, shouldn't everyone be, like, brainstorming? Like, you guys are all super smart, too. Like, why just me? And Ninomiya just says, like, he doesn't say anything, but Emma just says, like, hey, like, I'm going to be the one to decide whether we employ your ideas or not, but, like, why are you looking at me for all of this? And, yeah, that's sort of where we just end this scene with, who's his face, Emma just going, like, come on, we should all work as a team, and, like, I can think more of these things through, like, come on. And this, we're just, like I said, that's where we end that scene. It's a bit of a weird thing. I've sort of like to see Ninomiya say something else to that instead of sort of have, like, a brief word bubble, but we'll probably get that next chapter or a chapter after, something like that. At this point, we cut over to Mizukami Squad 9. Golly, I really think this is the least interesting squad that we have going for us here. I'm gonna look through all these squads one more time. Utagawa, we have Yuma and Urashima on it, so I'm really down for it. OG Squad, I guess we don't have too much. They have a coma, which means that they have the comic relief stuff going on. But besides for that, OG Squad's not really too interesting. Kakizaki has that great dynamic of Kagiura and Inukai, two people who fucking hate each other, which is just really nice. Kitazoe has Kikuchihara, Kitazoe, and Hana, so it's fine squad, decently interesting. I guess Kuruma's not that interesting too. I mean, they have Yuba, and that's really their own key player. Kodera Squad has Kitora on it, and I guess Miura by extension, because Miura's sort of important due to the whole Kitori line. Suwa Squad is goated. Ninomiya Squad is goated. Mizukami Squad is also pretty goated. I mean, they've got Kumagai, who is one of the best female characters in the series, I think. She's like top 4 or 5, all things considered. And then Wakamura Squad, it has Hyuse, so I really think the squads that are the least interesting to me is really just Mizukami Squad, Kuruma Squad, and probably, I don't know. I think it's really just those two that I don't find the most interesting. Either way, Mizukami Squad, the smart gang. They are sitting here at the table, looking at their computer screens, and we really get a focus on Troya and Kashio here, as they're sort of sitting here just really thinking. And I love that Arafune is looking between two of them like, hey, you two are looking out of sorts. Like, are we not happy with 5th place today? As we get their ranking, current ranking is, of course, 1st place. We know this. They're the smart squad. Daily rank, 7th place. Special simulation, 5th place. Yada, yada, yada. And Troy is just like, yeah, I mean, that's sort of one factor, but I'm also really frustrated that Kitazoe Squad used our plan to sow confusion with appearances, and it actually did a whole lot better than ours did, right? And Arafune is like, yeah, I mean, you guys mean like how all of their guys look like snipers but had different abilities. Operator Conan just says like, hey, I think our strategy was widely successful. We took our rivals' background knowledge and ended up using it against them. We started losing in the second half, but that is because all of those squads had already gone up against Kitazoe Squad, and were wary about being fooled by appearances. So sort of showing you like that same tactic only works really the first time you see it, and being that 2 squads employed it, it didn't really work so well. As she says, Troy is just like, yeah, I mean, I see, like, the match order can really affect how certain strategies play out. But at this point, Arafune is like, all right, we've heard Teruya's opinion, but what's got you all deep in thought, Kashio? And Kashio just says, like, hey, well, here's the thing, like, I've been thinking, like, I've got more or less a grasp on all of our general rival strategies, except for Suwa Squad 7's. I cannot figure out the logic behind the success of their strength in numbers approach. When he's like, he turns to the rest of the team just like, hey, as senior agents, what do you guys think about all of this, right? And Arfune is like, well, I've actually got a pretty decent idea myself. And of course, being the smart girl she is, Troy's just like, oh, no, don't spoil the answer. I'd like to come up with one myself. I don't know. I would have definitely taken the answer if it was in front of me, at least get an idea about it. I don't know if that means I'm not smart. I mean, this is the first World Trigger chapter I'm recording in college, so who knows? I may be dropped out by the time I film the next one, so who really knows? But it just seems like I would want to hear Arafune's opinion on that. I understand what Troy is getting at, but, like, still, come on. Yeah. At this point, we can see in the background of this panel here that, who's his face? Mizukami is in the background, preferably what I think is in the bathroom, or it may be the kitchen, like cooking something up or doing something or other. And he eventually walks out in the next panel and just says, like, hey, team, instead of sitting and mulling all of this over, like, how about we do our thinking while, like, tinkering away at all of these Trine soldiers, right? And Toroi's like, oh, well, I guess you already know the answer here, Mizukami, so I guess you don't need to think about this. And Mizukami's like, you really think I know? I don't have the faintest idea what they were doing. And, like, he's like, I don't really know much about it. I honestly don't care either, right? And Troy's like, oh my god, why do I have to put up with you? And that's where we end this small scene here with Mizukami Squad 9. The one thing about what this interaction here is I think it ends on more of an interesting note, sort of saying, like, hey, do you know what's going on here, Mizukami? Mizukami's like, I don't know. And Troy's like, god damn it. Which I feel like is a more better place to end off the scene than literally just like, hey, Emma, we will employ your ideas and all that stuff. Okay, but why don't we all work together? Okay, I think it's a worse place to end off the scene here, but whatever. At this point, we cut over to Kuruma Squad 5, who we get their rankings. Current ranking is 8th place, daily rank 11th place, and special simulation 11th place. Showing that they did crap today. They did terribly. But it starts off with Kuruma going over all of the data from the special battle simulation exercise, day 1 rankings, and he's just like, alright, based on who's at the top of these rankings today, it looks like squads with a clear vision are really winning big, while squads that are try to react and adapt are really struggling out. And, what's this guy's name? I know it in the back of my head. Korai. Korai, who's on the squad, is like, yeah, it really seems like. And he's like, maybe if they all came at us with distinct, locked-in strategies, the adaptive formation would do relatively well, but our approach was bad one to choose for the first day. And Kuruma's like, yeah, I genuinely agree. And he's like, there's no denying it, that our lackluster strategy did not serve us well today. And he's like, hey, my bad, it was a bad judgment call on my part. If I could speak, Kuruma says that was a bad judgment call on my part. And at this point, we look over to Yuba, who is also in this squad, and we see that he is hunched over his desk and is really, really frustrated, as Kuruma is like, hey, so honestly, Yuba, don't be too down to dumps, man. And Yuba's like, no, I'm not down in any dump right now. I think we've just got beat down by a fancy trick one too many times, so now I'm pondering how to hit him back with a vengeance. And while Kuruma is thinking of this, like, oh no, we see there's a brief period of silence as the whole squad is sort of just looking at Yuba there, until Yuba just, like, pipes up again, just saying, like, hey, that said, I'm feeling really sorry, Korai, especially after you took all of that time to show me the ropes here in the special battle simulation today, right? And Kurai's like, oh, wait, what are you talking about? Like, don't mention it, man. Like, I know you'll be carrying us to victory tomorrow and during the battle phase and all that stuff too, so don't worry about it. I'm glad that I could help you out a little bit, right? And Yuba sort of takes a look at this, and Kuruma looks over at Korai, and the operator, Osano, sort of just, like, nods her head a little bit. And Yuba's like, ha, well, like, hell, I'm waiting that long. I'm gonna get my revenge during this phase. Sort of just being, like, that edgy guy of, like, yeah, I'm going to go and I'm going to, not an edgy guy, he's sort of just got that determination, sort of just going like, yeah, I'm not going to beat him up in the battle phase, I'm going to beat him up now, and sort of just like showing that dedication. And for the last little scene of this moment, we see that, of course, the other member of the squad, who is Hikari, we pretty much see like, hey, while this was going on, Hikari was doing the dishes. Jam. So, yeah, Hikari wasn't there. Yada yada. Fun little joke to end off the scene on, but yeah, I really like this because it sort of shows us that, all right, tomorrow this squad did like crap, but Yuba, who is probably one of the more competent members of the team, of course, this team has two captains, of course, being that we have Yuba and we also have Kuruma here. So, being there are two captains in this team, the two most capable members are probably Kuruma, who made a bad judgment call today, and Yuba, who wasn't able to really show off his captain skills because he has been following the other captain, Kuruma. So, very interesting to sort of see how that is going to work here, and to see how Yuba ends up evolving over the next few days. But with that, we finally cut over to, I think, the second to last squad that we see in this chapter. Yes, it is. As we cut over to Kitazoe's Squad 4. As we start off, of course, with their rankings. The current ranking is in 4th place, which is up where they were last time. Daily rank in 2nd place, and the special stimulation thing of 3rd place. So yeah, we all know that they did incredibly well during the battle simulations, and their strategy of, hey, units that all look the same is a pretty good one. So pretty much we start off here with this little scene with Kikuchihara. And of course, Kikuchihara, the one A-rank dude here in this squad, one of the, one of the 3 A-rank agents participating in this whole event here, if I'm not mistaken, because yeah, we have Kodera and Kitora. We have Utagawa. So it's 4, including Kazama. Or Kikuchihara, who's from Kazama Squad. Yeah, I think we just have those 4, if I'm not mistaken. Or there may be an operator that I'm totally forgetting of, but whatever. Either way, Kikuchihara pretty much starts it off just going like, hey, guys, that's why we shouldn't waste that much time prepping for tomorrow's battle sims. Obviously, giving a reason here that we did not fully get. He's like, setting aside Ninomiya and Wakamura squads and their natural try-on advantage, we're basically playing a big game of rock, paper, scissors with everyone else here. And we see one of the other members, Tonuka, is pretty much like, hey, do you actually think all of that? And Kizo's like, hey, do you agree, Some? And Hannes is like, hey, somewhat, the respective matchups between different tactics are a major factor in who will win and who will lose tomorrow. What's his name again? Tonuka is then just like, hey, even during the matches today, winning relied on our strategy being a good fit for the opponent, right? And then the other character here in this squad was, of course, Kai Minamisawa. And I'm going to call him Kai because that's 10 times easier than Minamisawa. Kai is like, hey, but what do we do about all of those other 2 squads like Ninomiya and Wakamura squads? And Kikuchihara's like, well, we'll just go for draws tomorrow. Like, that's really good enough. As he's like, hey, we take the units we slap together and crank up the stats that'll help them defend and run away. And as long as they endure for 5 turns, we'll be good. We'll be into winning. Like, we'll be doing all of this good stuff here. And he's like, the first turn 2 should be spent observing, since it'll be no big deal if we lose 2 or 3 units anyway, right? And Kitazoe is like, all right, I hear you, that makes some good sense. And that does sound like a pretty safe approach for tomorrow, and it really makes our job a simple one. And Kikuchihara just says like, hey, the assignments are where we're really, really in trouble. And he's like, so far, Some's earned about 70% of our delegated assignment points, despite the fact that she's also worked on the sim tactics with me. And he's like, that's really kind of a poor showing from the rest of you guys, right? As Tonuka and Kai are just like, oh, like, tell us how you really feel. And he's like, and like, people aren't cut out like for different stuff, and we're not cut out for homework and stuff, right? And even Kitazoe gets in on it, saying like, hey, those delegated assignments are tough, and I'm not too confident that I'll be contributing too many points there, right? And Kikuchihara just is like, hey, in that case, Some and I will handle the first half, while you 3 take care of the back half, right? And he's like, hey, those later problem sets are all Trine related, and there should be plenty of doable given the resources on hands, right? As we see that Kai gets up and walks over to a bookshelf where there's like a bunch of textbooks and manuals all on the shelf here, and he's like, by resources, you mean these guys right here? And they sort of open up the book as we see there's some diagrams in here, and who's this face? Kai's like, golly, I can't even like make heads or tails of these diagrams here. Like, what's going on? And Kikuchihara's just like, dude, like, can you read the labels and the explanations on the pages? Like, you are literate, yes? And I love the panel where Kikuchihara does this because we can tell that he's obviously pissed. Like, the way his eyes are drawn and, like, his furrowed brow, he's just, like, staring deep into Kai's soul. Like, you are literate, yes? And just the way I imagine him saying that, and if this ever does get an anime adaptation, whatever, which I of course know won't be for any time soon, I imagine the scene wherever Kikuchihara says this will be like peak fiction. But either way, Kai is just like, hey, well, we gotta chip away at this even if it takes some serious time. And Kitazoe is like, yeah, everyone else is dealing with the same stuff here, so we need to be doing it too. As we suddenly cut over to the, we cut over to the final scene of the chapter here. I guess I should probably give my thoughts on what actually happened here in Kitazoe Squad 4. And all I can say is Kikuchihara is the GOAT, and the rest of these guys I don't care about, because Hana really didn't do anything, and I think she's one of the only other interesting characters in this squad, because I honestly don't really care about Kitazoe. He's big meteor bomb guy. And then, like, Tanuka and Kai, like, yeah, they're sort of just there. I don't care about those other two characters. It is what it is. Whenever World Trigger has a cast of characters this big, any series that has a cast of characters this big, there's obviously going to be some losses, and this is one of them. But we cut over to Wakamura Squad 11 as our final scene from the chapter, as we pretty much see that Hyuse has opened up one of these books and is currently reading through it. And we sort of get a better idea of what it actually is now. We see that it's sort of like a trigger loadout breakdown. It's like, hey, here's the central circuit and trigger chip. And it's just like a textbook that reads like, hey, the user's try-on passes from the central circuit to the chosen trigger chips, allowing for programmed capabilities of each trigger to manifest. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on here. And we see on the other page, there's some questions like, hey, blade trigger circuit diagram simplified. And we see, like, hey, answer to questions. Is it B, hardness, C, power, or C form? Like, just some interesting little questions here. And we open up here with Hyuse obviously reading it, and he's like, oh, I see. This is the fundamentals of Tryon engineering, isn't it? And as he's sort of reading through all of this book, of course, yes, he's a neighbor from After Couture. Of course he would understand the fundamentals of Tryon engineering. And as he's reading through all of this, Sasumori is like, hey, Hyuse, do you actually understand this material? And Hyuse is like, I mean, yeah, it's rather elementary content, like, and the diagrams show you everything that you really need to know. And Wakamura is like, wait, I mean, can you handle all of those delegated assignments then? And Hyuse is like, yeah, I mean, as long as it's an open book test, I mean, the assignment shouldn't be an obstacle at all. And we even see that Hanazaki's just like, whoa, like, for real? Like, and as their other two, like, Sasumori and Hanazaki are just like, did you hear that, Rokuro? And Wakamura's just like, yeah. And as he starts thinking, he's like, man, we are actually still in the running here. And he's like, if we can do all of these delegate assignments and stuff here, it's like, there's still hope that Squad 11 won't come in dead last. And he eventually, like, stutters a few of his words to eventually talk to Hyuse. He's like, hey, here's the plan, Hyuse. First thing tomorrow morning, you meet with Asoy, and you guys get to working on those engineering-based questions. And Hyuse's like, I mean, I have no objections. And after hearing this, Hanazaki's like, man, Hyuse, is there anything that you can't do? And we get another funny note here from Sasumori, just like, I mean, he is related to Chief Cronin after all, so I mean, it makes a little bit of sense. And we even see Hanazaki's like, oh yeah, I mean, you're right. And I love Hyuse's comment, like, indeed, we are definitely related. Like, enforcing the idea, like, all right, we are related, but saying it also in the worst possible way, like, oh yes, I'm a neighbor, I am also Canadian. for sure, and Canadians cannot sleep in rooms with other people. That's just how Canadians are. Like, it's, come on, dude, like, what in the world? I love Hyuse's sort of blank statements of, for sure, and I guess that makes sense since I think Cronin is supposed to be an engineer for Border. So I was named Michael Cronin. Let me quickly look into World Trigger Border Briefing File book. I don't know if there is a page that would have Cronin on it. It would probably be near wherever Tamakoma. Well, I don't think there's a specific like Tamakoma branch area as far as stuff goes. Like, let's get through the color pages. I love that data books have color pages in them. It truly makes the world a better place. Yeah, so yeah, A rank and then B ranks, and then all of the general files. I also don't know how much Cronin showed up by the time this book was published. So, we may just need to quickly skip this question, but if I'm not mistaken, Cronin's role in Border is as an engineer, and it's really simple as that. And as, Hyuse says, like, hey, indeed we are definitely related, Hanazaki says, like, hey, I gotta say, like, Tamakoma's agents, like, aren't they all in, like, another league? And I'm gonna be remiss if I don't see this here. We see that Hanazaki's hair isn't looking how it normally is, obviously with the idea that what he ended up doing is that he took a shower or something, or he just simply took off his ball cap and his hair looks terrible underneath it, right? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he took a shower, which is why his hair's all frizzy and stuff like this. But either way, he looks really stupid with his hat off. So some World Trigger characters have really stupid hats like Taiki, and other people like Hanazaki, please, for the love of all things holy, keep the hat on. But as Hanazaki says this, he's like, well, first off, like, Kuga and Amatori have been in the spotlight for a while, but, like, after today's Sims, like, I also realized that Osamu is, like, pretty wild, and, like, Hyuse can do it all, like, really except the Japanese language, which, guys, I'm definitely Canadian, as we see just a whole, like, image here of, like, Chika, Agent 1, Power, Yuma, Agent 2, Skills, Agent 3, Osamu, Strats, Agent 4, Hyuse, Canada. Oh my, where nobody's getting Hyuse away from these Canada allegations, like, come on now. But Sasamori then just says, like, hey, the senior agents from Tamakoma are also big forces to be reckoned with. Of course, yeah, how could you forget, oh no. Okay, Konami, Reiji, oh no, Karasawa, no, is it Karasawa? I know Torimaru is, like, the other name you can use, but fuck, what's his actual name? I'm having a bad time right now. Tamakoma 1. Karasawa. Is it Karasawa? I feel like it's really Karasawa. Oh no, what did I do? Okay, World Trigger fandom. Come on, please load. Yeah, I probably need to cut this out. Other members, Kurumi? Yeah, Karsuma. Alright, I was right. I don't know why I was having doubts on that. Yes, either way, what he's talking about, where was I? Hanazaki says, like, yeah, no, it says it right here. What, if I only just read, like, yeah, Torimaru is a good dude. Heck, they even got a capybara over there. I'm talking about a packed house of top-tier elites. Showing off, like, yeah, pretty interesting. I don't know if we know that Hanazaki and Karasawa have a established relationship in the past. That may be something that gets mentioned, like, one panel and never again. But it is pretty interesting to see. But we pretty much see that Wakamura here, and he's like, they are all absolutely right. Like, everyone at Tamakoma brings and packs that heat. And he's like, and that just makes me wonder. And he eventually turns over to Hyuse and is like, hey, does Tamakoma branch have some sort of secret weapon that improves all of its members? And Hyuse is like, I mean, no, not as far as I know. And he's like, I don't get the impression that there's anything special going on. Reiji and Torimaru's leadership is fairly ordinary, and in terms of training efficacy, what is it? In terms of training efficiency, no. Efficacy? I don't know what that word means. I legitimately don't. Let me search this up real quick. Oh, and if I could actually type and do stuff well, that would probably really help in the long run. Oh my, why is my computer bugging out? Holy crap. I'm sorry if the last part of this video has been terrible because my computer is not working. E-C-A-C-Y. Let's see what this word means. Let's listen to it. Let me turn up my volume and,
efficacy.
Efficacy. The ability to produce a desired or intended result. So the ability to go for a desired result, which is making a strong member in this case, is like in terms of training efficacy, I imagine that those at Border HQ are better off giving the broader diversity of sparring partners, as we get this really interesting image here of course, there are the 8 members of Tamakoma branch being Reiji, Konami, Torimaru, Jin, Yuma, Osamu, Chika, and Hyuse. There's only 8 of them, while at the Border HQ, there are so many more people. You have Mutagawa, Urashima, Kotaro, Oji, Suji, Komo, Bashima, Kagiura. For some reason, if you wanted to fight against Taichi, he's there. Inukai, Ninomiya, Azuma, Arafune, Murakami, Wakamura, Sasamori. All of these other people are there at Border HQ, which means that there are so many more people to fight there, so you get more varied and get better at your particular skill if you are at HQ. So Sasamori then just says like, hey, so the HQ is the superior in training environment, like in theory at least, right? And Hanazaki is like, I mean, that doesn't mean that we're looking like at 100% natural talent either. And Osamu's like, hey, what you're calling natural talent really only applies to Chika. The others are not so different from the agents of HQ, and he's like, and Osamu, in fact, is around the bottom of the middle tier, as we pretty much get a little bit of an image with relative natural talent represented by size. And here on the page, we see that the natural talent for Chika is massive. It is almost as big as this panel is. Like, it is completely massive. And then from there, you have Reiji, Jin, Yuma, Karasawa. For some reason, they decided to include, oh no, why can I not forget the guy's name now? I feel terrible. Why? Okay. I'm not going to pause the video until I remember his name. No data books, no nothing. I'm just going to sit here until I can remember his name. Rajanmaru is, oh my gosh. Just to finish up this panel real quick, there's Kirei and then, or Konami and then Osamu all the way to bottom. What is his name? Is it Yotaro? Maybe? Yotaro Rindo? Yotaro Rindo? Is that who it is? Okay, it is Yotaro. I don't know why I couldn't remember Yotaro's name. Alright. We see Yotaro. He's here too also. Man, my throat's being destroyed by this. But yes, again, we see Chika, we see Reiji, we see Jin, we see Yuma, Torimaru, Yotaro, Konami, and then at the bottom, Osamu, right? And Hyuse just says like, hey, and if I've detected anything exceptional about the people at Tamakoma, it would be have to be their capability, plain and simple, right? And we see that both Hanazaki and Sasumori are like, capability, like, okay, like, what do you mean by that? And Wakamura is just like, so it's not about their environment or just like general natural talent, it's actually a capability gap. And he even thinks to himself again, like, what does that even mean though? And all of a sudden, to end off the chapter, Wakamura just is like, hey, if it's not about the setting or talent, then what does Mikumo have that I don't? And he directs this question directly at Hyuse here. And that is where we end off this chapter, on this sort of massive note of Wakamura really wondering, if we have a better environment, and if I've actually got a better natural talent than him, why is Osamu better than me? What capabilities make Osamu a better leader and captain than I am at all? And that is a really awesome place to end off this chapter of World Trigger. So, like I said, my throat is very tired, so I'm probably not going to spend too long on the general wrap-up of this chapter. But there are a lot of really good things here. Again, just going through all of the character POVs we saw again. we saw Suwa Squad. The big idea is that Osamu is going to make cheap tactics for tomorrow so that they can end up going through and not completely dominating, but also not wasting too much time on doing this too well. Ninomiya Squad, Emma is going to end up being the smart guy as far as all things goes, coming up with tactics. Then Mizukami Squad, we pretty much just got the whole idea that they don't actually know what's going on. And I guess the one thing that we know about the Battle Sims tomorrow is that Mizukami just asked them to start tinkering away at Neutron soldiers. Kuruma Squad, Yuba has dedication, and we'll hopefully see Yuba do some really cool and awesome stuff tomorrow. Kitazoe, we see that Kikuchihara is very mad at people for not being illiterate, and that their squad is probably not going to be doing too well in the final rankings just because they aren't a squad full of a lot of really good and smart people. And then the whole stuff of Wakamura Squad is, number one, Hyuse knows Tron engineering and knows it extremely well. I need to say this again. I love the diagram that we can briefly see of this Tryon engineering system. It looks like a total textbook. Like, it's so honestly cool to see. And then, of course, ending with the whole idea of Wakamura just being like, hey, what does Mikumo got that I don't? It is very interesting to go around and sort of see all of this. Now, as far as all of the general squads, though, next chapter, of course, we're going to be probably getting this whole idea of, hey, what about Wakamura Squad? We're going to get the answer to this question, hopefully, of what does Mikumo got that Wakamura doesn't. But as far as the other squads that we've seen have gone, we've seen Unagawa Squad. We saw them last chapter. OG Squad, we have not seen them yet after this first day of battles. We have seen Kakizaki Squad. We saw them last chapter. Kitazoe Squad was this chapter. Kuruma Squad this chapter. We have not seen Kodera Squad. We, of course, have seen Suwa Squad. Ninomiya Squad, we have seen them. Mizukami Squad, seen them. And Murakami Squad, also seen them. And, of course, we ended off on Wakamura. So, I guess next chapter, my prediction is we will probably cut to at least Kodera Squad and OG Squad to get all of their ideas on the battle simulations here and how they're going to be going forward with all of these various ideas of, hey, are they going to be taking tactics or are they not going to be taking it seriously? Like, what are they going to do here? But most importantly, next time, I'm just excited to see this whole idea of Wakamura realizing what he has, what Mikumo has that he doesn't, which I feel will be a really great and awesome moment next chapter. With that, I really don't have too much else to say. Of course, I'm filming this at nearly the end of August, so we do have confirmation that we have a World Trigger chapter coming out in September of 2024, at the beginning of the month also, which will mean that this will be 3 months in a row where we have had a World Trigger chapters, which, as far as I'm aware, hasn't happened in a good little while. So that'll be pretty awesome to see. But yeah, with that, thank you guys so very much for watching this video. I know this is probably a long one looking at the time on my computer, probably at least a 50-minute video, and depending on if I cut out a few of the parts where I messed up speaking, all of that could be a bit longer or it could be a bit shorter. Who really knows? But I have plenty of other World Trigger videos up on the channel. If you want to see some other volume and chapter reviews, or not volume reviews, just chapter reviews, I have those up there, of course. And also, I do a few other series on the channel talking about, like, the Oshinoko manga, for instance, or the Kagurabachi manga series I recently just started. And, of course, I would probably recommend Kagurabachi to any World Trigger fan. Granted, I'd recommend it to any manga fan, so it's sort of just how it is. If you want to connect with me, of course, in the description down below, there's the Discord link, the Twitter link, and all of that other stuff. Come follow me and do all that stuff there, and we can talk about World Trigger another time. So, thank you guys so very much for watching. I really don't have too much else to say at this point. Great chapter of World Trigger. Again, this was chapter number 244, titled The Away Mission Test, Part 40. And I'll see you guys next time for chapter number 245. Most likely titled The Away Mission Test Part 41. But if it isn't, I'll be decently surprised. I will be more decently surprised. I will be super happy with my life. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. This will be Glowplasma 231, signing out.